Welcome, everyone, to a special bonus episode of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks, the internet's leading all things Charles Band podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jared Hornbeck, coming to you from always as Brooklyn, New York. But you've become accustomed to now as a listener, I am not alone. No, who else is here with me?
Well, it's me, perched up here on the rooftop, Steve Guntley. I'm very excited to welcome you all to a special bonus episode. One of our favorite things on this show is when we get to talk to people who were directly involved with the movies that we're covering. These are not super well documented movies. These are not super there's a lot of question marks about how these movies were made and what the actual process was like. So getting firsthand account is still the best and most reliable way. And today we're going to be talking to some people who are very heavily involved in a movie that I think both Jared and I consider a real cut above most of the movies that we've talked about on this show. This is kind of a top 10 movie for us. And really, we think one of the stronger of the golden age of Full Moon. Now that I've rambled on and made everybody embarrassed, let's please have our guests introduce ourselves.
Hi, I'm Linda Hassani. I directed Dark Angel of the ASCENT, and I'm happy to be here. Hi, everyone.
Hello, thank you so much. And we're joined by another special guest. Who else is joining us?
This is Michael Mahon, and I played Detective Greenberg. And I'm happy to be on this podcast.
Oh, we're thrilled to have you both. This is really
I'll say
very
this.
Exciting.
Detective Greenberg, can't imagine anyone else playing him. The role is yours, like for life. No, it's so funny because when we do things like when we have these kind of introductions, I'm always like, it would be I wish there was a way that the listener didn't know what the movie was by reading the name of the file and the episode name. Like, it would be so cool for them to have to find out what it is. But it's like, but at the same time, it's like, we want some clicks, we want some listens. So we're going to put the name of the movie in the title of the bonus episode. But I would have loved a hypothetical where someone is like, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? And then they say Dark Angel, the Ascent. And they're like, yes, I really love this one.
We've had a huge response to our episode on this movie, with a lot of people writing in and saying this was either their first or their favorite Full Moon movie. Wow. And it's one that still has a fan base within this kind of subset of the horror community. So we're very excited to have both of you here to talk a little bit about your experiences. I guess really I wanted to Linda, we'll start with you. I was just really curious, when you got this gig, where are you in your career at this point, and how did this sort of come about for you?
Oh, that's a great question. It's actually quite strange because I was doing, what was I doing at the time? I had just finished film school in England, and I was had moved back to Los Angeles, and I was making short films and some various things, whatever was around. Let's see, what year was it? It would have been I went back in 1990. And so the Writers Guild strike had happened, if I recall correctly. There'd been a long strike. And what had happened that had changed the industry quite a bit at the time, for me anyway, was that the middle of the middle budget and lower budget movies were kind of gone. And so it was actually quite difficult to get a foothold if you were a young filmmaker. And I was speaking with my friend, Barbara Crampton.
Never heard of her.
Who happened to mention that Charlie Band was making films in Romania. And my connection to Romania, which was a place I wanted to film, was that my brother was working there at the time. And so I was really keen on going to do a project somewhere where I could, visit my brother at the same time, which would be kind of lovely, which it was.
Yeah.
So it turned out to be Romania. And so I was really excited when Barbara happened to mention that he was filming there. And I thought, okay, so I'll make contact and see if I can get on board anything. And sure enough, I mean, I got very, 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 very lucky because the script was right up my alley. It was perfect for me. I wasn't really a horror person generally, but this script was so funny that I was immediately taken by it. So.
Well, it has all the hallmarks of a Matthew Bright script. I mean, we've covered Matthew Bright in Shrunken Heads, and we've covered him on Freeway. And I think that there's a good amount of that in here too. I think in addition to a lot of the really lush kind of location shooting and gothic stuff, there is a lot of really intentional humor in this movie, which was one of the things I think that makes it. I think sometimes when you watch some of these like mid to very low budget films, I think maybe as an audience, sometimes you wonder like, how much of this am I supposed to be laughing at? Like how much of this is intentional? And I think in Dark Angel, The Ascent, there's a good amount. Like I definitely, I rewatched it after having like getting on the horn with you guys to set this up. Between then and this recording now, I watched it again, and I'm saying it holds up so well. It's so fun.
And yeah, between this and Freeway, those are my two favorite Matthew Bright scripts of the ones we covered, and they're both movies that are playing within an established genre, but are like 10% weirder and 10% funnier than they need to be. Like they're just a little skewed, and they're just like funnier than you would expect. I think that's a good hallmark of a good script, I think.
Well, it's so great to be shooting, to be shooting in Bucharest and not acknowledging that you're in a foreign country is kind of fun in and of itself. So automatically you're kind of unseated from whatever comfort zone you might have, because nobody ever identifies where we are. It's just a weird place.
It works because it's such like a gothic looking city, like it's modern, but it does like it has all these kind of castles and things like that kind of built into the background. And y'all were among the first like film crews period to be filming in Bucharest. We've talked to a friend of the show, Ted Nicolau, who worked on the Subspecies films.
Lovely guy.
Which he's great. But those were the first American films ever shot in Romania, and you guys were in that first wave of so what was it, what were you feeling like some still like leftover kind of political tension while you were there? Did you find you were being welcomed pretty easily?
Are you asking if we were followed by the Securitate?
Not directly, because they might be following me, but yes, but
Well, Mike, you might have an experience with that. I remember leaving. My hotel room was next to Mike Digger's hotel room, and I remember coming and going on that floor, and there was a neighboring room, and the door was always slightly ajar, and in that neighboring room there were two people huddled over a recorder with headphones on. And our joke was that they definitely were still listening to all of our conversation.
They were just starting the first podcast. So that was he just stumbled in on it. Yeah, they were pioneers.
Yeah. Sending messages to Frank Langella.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. What was that place we saw? Hotel Lebeda, right?
Yeah, Hotel Lebeda.
And it was a sanatorium before
of course
before
it was.
we entered the place.
Yeah.
But we would we would talk freely, I think, as Americans, just not really kind of clueless, like that people would listen in on our conversations.
Right.
And when you were talking to some of the Romanians, they'd be like, no, don't. Shh. Like they would, you'd be like, what? Hey, Foch, and and they would get a little panicked. We wouldn't, because we were kind of oblivious to Ceausescu and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
I've noticed that's kind of the way that like either expatriates or just tourists, American tourists in other countries, like are always easily identifiable in that way. I remember like I was in Germany with a group of friends, and we didn't even say a word, and someone came up to us and like, you guys are American, right? And we're like, how did you know? And he's like, because you walk around like you own the place. And I was like, well, that's unfortunate.
No.
Like it's not intentional, I promise.
But the Romanian people were like, they were the most beautiful people you could ever meet, like meaning inside and out. They were just, lovely. And I made a lot of friends out there because, when we were shooting, we had to take a break because one of the lead actors got sick, had to get medevac to Vienna. So we were there. It was cheaper for Charlie to keep us in Romania than to fly us back home. So we, for I want to say 3 weeks, were it was discos every night, and we were going to the Black Sea, meeting everybody, everybody in Romania.
I'm sure you're telling the truth, but I have a very hard time imagining Charles Band making a frugal decision.
Well, Michael, I wanted to ask you. So you actually have a string of credits in Full Moon movies that we've talked about. You're in some of the Josh Kirby films, and you're also in Oblivion, which is another personal favorite of ours.
Yeah.
But that one and this one were probably shooting around the same time. Do you remember which one you were working on first, or?
Well, yeah, I was working on Dark Angel because I got hired by Linda.
Oh, okay.
But then in that 3-week period, Sam Irvin was doing Oblivion, and my friend Richie Paul was in the lead in that.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, I was lobbying, I'll do anything. So all of a sudden he wrote a part for me, and I think he called me Tobacco Joe or something. I was just spitting tobacco, and I was in the bar, but
That's
so
funny.
I got to do something.
I didn't catch that one, but I did catch when I went back and I was looking through the IMDb. I had a moment where I was like, yes, that's where, because I was looking at your photo and I'm watching Dark Angel. I'm like, okay, I remember the two cops in Dark Angel, and it was the dad and Josh Kirby. I was like, oh, that's who it is. I'm like, I know this guy's in something else. It'll come to me. And that's what it was. The dad and Josh Kirby, which we've done a few of those.
Speak about frugal, like Charlie. What happened, and I'll never make this mistake again, is the sound got screwed up in the very first time, Josh Kirby, and they called me in to do ADR. My agent was like, no, don't go in. They'll give you, make sure they'll pay us. And then they didn't come back to him because he asked for money for the ADR. And then all of a sudden I went to see the film, and they literally took out my voice in the first one.
Oh no.
And I'm like, son of a gun. And then all the other ones, my voice is there, but the very first one that it got screwed up, they're like, well, it's cheaper for them to get some actor here to do my voice for that scene. So I was like, I'll never make that mistake again.
Oh,
that's
man,
ridiculous.
that's wild.
Oh my God.
It's funny. I love hearing the connection between Oblivion and Dark Angel also, because like Sam Irvin is also a friend of the show, Ted Nicolau. It's just a big, and that's, I think, one of my favorite things about one of the byproducts, I guess, of doing the show that maybe was an fun, unexpected consequence, was to have this kind of pool of people who all know each other and all have had great working relationships and such nice things to say about each other. And it's like Sam Irvin was one of the earliest interviews that we did on the show. And then it was like him mentioning so-and-so and Ted Nicolau and so-and-so. And then we, end up having Ted, and he mentioned someone else. And it's really nice to have the same, group of names kind of floating around. I'm curious. So you have a lot of Romanian, I guess, not extras, but Romanians as kind of secondary and tertiary characters in the movie. And then you have Angela Featherstone in the lead. So what was the casting process like for that movie? Was that done before you were attached? Well, I guess not, if Michael was hired by you. So what was it like to bring she's Canadian, I believe, right?
Yes. But she was I didn't note that when we were casting. I mean, she was in the LA environment. So we had these two great casting directors. Oh my goodness.
Bob McDonald and Perry Burlington.
Wonderful. Totally lovely
Wonderful.
guys.
Yeah.
Lovely, lovely guys. And gosh, we had, it was a great group of actors who came in, really terrific. And so I was allowed to cast just the leading roles. So the detectives, the two leads, Angie and Daniel Markle, and Mike Genovese and Mike Mahon, and I think that was it, right? I think everyone else was cast in Romania. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think, Linda, you were in Romania when you cast me on the tape. Right?
Oh, was I?
I didn't meet you in LA. I met you were in Romania, and they sent you, I think, the tape. And then that's how I got the part with you.
I'm glad you remembered that, because I didn't, but we must have been in pre-production already, because I remember being there, just me and my first assistant director, Michael Dignam, for maybe, I don't know, 5 weeks before anybody came in. And it was all kind of happening at once, you know, which is kind of typical, right? It's all just happening at the same time. And I also remember that we had a film problem, and we ended up staying. You were in that scene. We ended up having to stay in Romania until it was almost snowing the day we reshot. Do you remember? I mean, that was like October, November.
November.
November. And Dignam and I had started in June. I had been there for like 6 months already.
Oh, wow.
I still remember the day, because I hadn't met Linda.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm in Hotel Lebanon. I get a knock on the door, and it was her.
Yeah.
And she sat down, and it's like that whole, right when I met her, she just, you know, it was like you automatically felt you were in a theater troupe. Like it was one of those, and that's what, like, she made you feel just so comfortable. And you talked about the character, and you talked about the things and the freedom you'll have, and we'll explore, and we'll have a, you know, and you really felt like we're a part of this. Again, it's like an old time theater group. And I would always say, it's like, I would love to do 3 of those movies with her every year. And that's it. And I wouldn't have to get paid very much. Just explore the character and have so much fun.
Yeah.
Cool. That sounds like a very Stuart Gordon type process of like taking the kind of theater aspect to your films, where you do rehearsals and you've got, you know, the people, the cast getting to know these characters. I always feel like you can see that. Like, I always feel like there's just, it's almost like an intangible, like when you're watching it as a viewer, but maybe you can't, as someone on the outside, put your finger on what it is, but it's something where you're like, these feel more realized. Like sometimes, you know, we'll watch some of these movies, and I think this goes for like a lot of low budget movies, not just necessarily stuff we've covered on the show, and maybe even some like regular, like big budget movies, where it's just like, it feels very much like this is the cast brought together, and these are them reading their lines and being their characters, but it doesn't feel lived in that way. And I think there are some of the best full moon movies. Like, I know, you know, Castle Freak is one of my favorites, and to harken back to Stuart Gordon. And I think one of the reasons is because, like, Barbara Crampton and Jeffrey Combs are so good together in that movie. That comes not only from years of them obviously having collaborated, but it's just in that process. Like, I think on paper, it's like, okay, you're a wife who's kind of fed up with her philandering alcoholic husband, and you're the philandering alcoholic husband. Go at it. But there's just it's so much more real between the two of them. And I think, like, it's nice to hear that was kind of the process there. I think it shows in this. And then I think some of the imagery in the movie is really great too. So I'm curious about like what of it felt more like it came directly from the page, or were there things that were like liberties taken with, I think stylistically it should look like this, because the hell opening sequence is so fun. I'm really curious where whose mind that really, you know, if that was a collaboration between the minds of Linda and Matthew Bright, or if it was more trying to be more, I guess, faithful to the page.
It's a great question, because these things always happen, again, sort of simultaneously. So very much the situation was that this script was given to me, and I was just super lucky that it was a Matthew Bright script. I was just super lucky. That was pure dumb luck. And I loved it. And really, there wasn't any, you know, there was time. I think I spoke to Matthew a few times, but I wish I could ask him right now, because I don't have a clear recollection of what exactly happened in the communication flow. I mean, there were some certain things, but, you know, his humor on the page was so clear to me that it was easy to extrapolate from that. So, you know, I have to take it off the page and make it real. And I knew that it was going to be an entirely location shoot. And that has very specific, that very clearly tells you there's certain things you're going to be able to do, and You can't lock into certain things in your mind that you're never going to find in Bucharest, Romania. You know,
Right.
you really can't. And so what that did was it kind of, if I could stay in the same thread of his humor, then I was able to kind of, you know, find the envelope, if you will, you know.
So in asking this question, there's one particular image that I'm thinking of, and it is with the, like, I guess, sinners, for lack of a better word, being branded with the giant, like, typewriter keys.
Yes.
Like, and every time I see that, I'm like, that is such an odd touch.
Mm.
Like it's so not obvious. I mean, there's other cool stuff, like you have what I don't know the name for it, but like the Jacob's ladder swiveling
Yes.
heads.
Yeah, the
a
head
bunch
shaky
of
thing.
those, the
Yeah, I don't
head
know what that's
shaky
called.
Oh
thing.
yeah.
But that typewriter with these giant, like, typewriter keys that are on these long, like, prongs, and they're just going back and forth. Like it's such a bizarre touch. And I watch it, I'm like, I love that this is here because it's not obvious. And that's what I'm picturing when I say that.
So absolutely homage to Jacob's Ladder, which was one of my favorite films.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Same.
Alan Parker had been influential to me because he was the one who recommended me to the film school.
Mm.
So before I was directing, he saw a short film I had made, and I had to go through him and get his recommendation to get into film school.
Oh,
And
wow.
he had just done Jacob's Ladder at that point. And so I love his films. He's a terrific filmmaker. And so I was influenced by that for sure. But I wish I had read the script. I've got to see if I have a copy of the original script. I must have it somewhere. But I'm almost 100% sure that typewriter piece was Matthew. I'm almost 100% sure. But, you know, the question is, you know, it's like, Mike, do you remember Ioana, who was our prop? There were props people there in Romania, and they brought weird stuff. Like there was stuff. They were like, what is that?
So many of the
stuff
props
in Danny's apartment, right? What was some of the stuff in Danny's apartment?
Yes. And so all of those things allowed us to improvise. All of those things gave us opportunities, all of those things. So as you know, once you're on the ground and you actually have to make it real in front of you, you have to get with the program. You have to extrapolate. And so the agenda really was to expand what the humor Matthew had created with whatever we could find.
Yeah, because you would walk in a room, and then, you know, like, obviously as a detective, you walk in a room and you're scoping the room and you're like, what the F is that? You know, you're like, okay. And so it gave you things to just observe and be like, there's something off here. And then, like, even in that one scene coming out of the movie theater, that pothole, you know, that I fall in, it's like, I didn't even tell Linda I was going to fall in it. I just was like, I figured it out, and I was like, oh, okay, this would be perfect because I think it's his humor. You know what I mean? Like, and so just, you know, and I just did. And then, you know, it's like, I don't even think I told Genovese.
You didn't? Did you not tell
I don't
him?
think so. Because I didn't want anyone to be waiting for it. I wanted to just be like, I knew that I could fall in it, not get hurt, hold my popcorn and get out and just go on my merry way back into the car.
I mean, it's like what you said, Michael. Like, there's so much of the American, or like the Western understanding of Romania is just based around the vampire mythology and not a whole lot else. Like, I don't think the average American, especially at that time, knew much about Romanian culture. So if you get these authentic, like, cultural artifacts from just around Bucharest that are like maybe fairly commonplace there, they hold this kind of like haunted sort of energy, which is what makes all these like Romanian shoots so effective when you're trying for these supernatural movies. Like, it works really well here, and it's super fun. I mean, I lost my train of thought. Oh my God, so sorry.
Well, I'll take over for a second.
Please.
Michael's talking about an acting choice that he made. There's an acting choice in this movie. Well, I guess it's not just a single choice. It is, well, I believe the first time I saw this movie, which was quite a while ago, I recognized Nicholas Worth as the guy from Darkman. He is in Darkman. That's where I know him from. He is unmistakable. Like, if you've seen him in something once, you're like, I've seen that guy. And obviously his IMDb calls him like big and beefy in the description. He's an imposing guy, but I have never, for the life of me, seen someone spit more food while talking
Oh yeah.
than he
Oh my
does.
Lord.
And I'm like, how much of that was like an actor's instinct that this would be, or was it direction? Like, it is. I think there's a whole like turkey leg comes out of his mouth at one point.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
You know what's amazing about Nick Worth is he was the what a prince of a man. Just the sweetest, most thoughtful person. But he had such good pipes. I mean, he really could bring it on, right? When he's screaming at her. He's so funny. I don't remember. I'm just gonna cop to that. I don't remember. But you know, you're reminding me of that scene now, and I'm thinking about all the little stuff, and it's just little stuff. You know, they all, after the shock of him sort of damning her, right? They all push their chairs back to leave the table, and there's a sound that happens when they push their chairs back, and so then we just stretched that. Just silly stuff like that. It just becomes the atmosphere is a kind of, it's got its own weird atmosphere.
But that's what makes movies, especially I think when you're working with limited budgets and time, that's what makes movies effective, I think, is when thought is given to those kind of details. I think there's kind of I don't want to say a cynicism, because I do think like people are in the low budget film industry for the right reasons. I don't think it's like anybody's just like, but I think when you take on a lot of projects and you're making things quickly and cheaply, you know, it's like sometimes I think projects can feel like, oh, I'm just checking boxes and we just got to get through this. And I love that you guys do this. And I didn't know this was like a film crew production thing. Maybe even outside of Full Moon, but every single person who's a filmmaker who's worked for Charles Band that we've spoken to has used the word show when talking about these movies. And I love that. I love the continuity there where every person is like, well, on this show, we were doing this. And it's just nice to hear that kind of uniform industry speak. But I think sometimes with these movies, it feels very, very much like someone's checking off boxes. And it's like, we just need to get this thing shot, printed, ready for release to VHS or wherever it's going. But I think, I don't know, whenever there's time given to those quirky details, it always elevates whatever those movies are. And I think you kind of nailed something that was till this moment kind of unspoken for me, and why, if I had to articulate why I think this one, you know, is more effective than some of the other Full Moon movies and why it's in that upper echelon of them, is for things like that, and just care given to some of the performances like that. Like, again, maybe it wasn't on the page that Nicholas Worth had to like spit a ton of food out of his mouth while he yelled those lines, but he does it, and man, it is
made choice.
Memorable.
It is. No, it really is. Now, a lot of these. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You know, one of the other pieces that also was sort of extended. Again, this is a testament to Charlie as well. I mean, Charlie could have gone in and said, "Hey, we got to tighten this up." I mean, we stretched all over the place, and a testament to the editor who just saw also let it breathe. Let's just put it that way. He let it breathe. But there's also, Charlotte Worth. She's the mother, and her tone is so great. Her tone of sort of like almost like the 1950s kind of mom is so funny. And, all those pieces are very sort of slow in a way, but yeah, they contribute. Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just curious, so many of these Full Moon productions are done quickly, especially increasingly quickly as these go. Do you remember how long the shoot was on this film in particular?
The original shoot was 30 days.
Oh, wow.
And it was 30 days every single day, a different location. That's actually really taxing.
I can imagine.
Sense that, I think there were a couple days we were on stage, right? Mahon, you weren't in those sequences, right? Because that's right. You wouldn't have been on stage. So you were all on location.
Yeah, I
Um,
was all, well, no, was the apartment on stage? No, the apartment was in a building,
Location.
right?
Location.
But it
Mm.
was also 30 days, but then because of
The
having to
extension.
be medevac to Vienna, it stretched out.
Yeah,
And one
yeah.
of the other things with, because one good thing about what Charlie does too is he puts you up in the same place.
Oh, nice.
So everybody is coming home to the same place. So that's how you felt like this community, and you did feel like a family. Like you got to know different people's you knew how to get to them if you needed to. Just like an older brother, younger sister, you kind of you knew where you could, I can use this in the scene. And
Mhm.
you were seeing everybody at breakfast and lunch. You saw them when they were annoyed, you saw them when they were happy. You saw, we went to the salt mine, we went to, where is it, where Dracula was born, or where it started, somewhere near the Black Sea. We all went on a trip up there.
Oh,
We
wow.
went to some castles. And so you really could find, I remember Danny was always late. He was always making the bus late to get someplace. We were
Danny
on
Markle?
adventure. Danny Markle. And so all of a sudden, like, you were like, okay, maybe I could get to him in the scene by doing this or this. And so you just found ways to play
Yeah.
in the ensemble. It was really awesome.
Being a
Really
handsome
awesome.
leading man tastes time consuming.
I mean, his blue eyes are like
Well,
unbelievable.
and that's true of a lot of people in this movie. I mean, they are both of them when they're in scenes together, they have like crystal blue eyes.
Unbelievable.
Very
Yeah.
cinematic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we had a great cinematographer. We had
Oh,
yeah.
that was another wonderful good fortune, which was that we had Vivi Dragan. He's a brilliant cinematographer. And so I'll never forget, he used to always turn to me and Romanians they can have a very dry sense of humor, and we'd be setting up a shot, or there'd be a sequence filmed, and he would turn to me and he'd say, "But Linda, it's not a comedy." And of course he was joking because it was too funny. We'd all have to laugh after the scene.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
I would have.
I mean,
Linda, didn't we have a scene that we had to do Marlon Brando kind of taping the lines to us, because didn't a Romanian actor call you up and say, "Oh, I'm not coming today." And then all of a sudden we had to shoot, and you had to recast somebody, and then we had to put the lines on me and Genovese, right?
That's exactly right. It was in the hospital. It was an actor. We cast someone, and on the morning of the shoot, and I think it was literally the first or second day of shooting, because we were in the hospital. It was the hospital scene. And they basically, I got a message from one of the production assistants saying, he doesn't feel like coming today. He just doesn't feel like coming. So suddenly we just needed to cast somebody. So we rushed. It's exactly what happened. I'm so glad you remembered that. I didn't remember that he didn't speak any English at all. He did really well with it. It was the director of the police. You guys went to meet with the director of police, I think.
Oh my
That's what it was. Yeah.
So now, next time I watch the movie, when I see that scene come up and I notice like the two shots, I'll be like, okay, so now I know that this guy has lines taped to him when I can't see him.
Or no, we have lines taped to us.
Yeah.
But he did amazing. It was awesome. He was
perfect. He was great. Yeah.
Yeah, this is less of a question, I guess, and more of just kind of piggybacking on what we were saying before about the cinematography. But I have to say, like, there's a lot of really striking images, and especially like a lot of the scenes once Angela Featherstone comes up to Earth and is walking around. I do kind of appreciate that she comes up and she's got her like wings and stuff, and then it kind of does a dissolve and she's just completely naked.
Right.
And I'm like, so
Mhm.
this is, this is kind of catering. Now we've got a little bit of our like, the full moon clientele who are picking this up off the video shelves are getting, a little bit of what they want here. But I think like that's handled in such a good way, like where she's, she's walking down the street, she's very vulnerable. People are turning and looking at her. But I think were there conscious like color choices with lighting her? Because every time she kind of is not when her eyes are glowing red, but like when she's watching something happen and she's kind of taking it in and she's kind of maybe thinking about like, why would people be doing this? Like, what is this evil that I'm witnessing here? I find like it's very interesting the way that she's shot and the way that she's lit. So were there like intentional color choices there? I feel like, was it anything like thematically that you were trying to do there?
Yeah. And I don't, honestly, again, it's one of those things where each of those circumstances was different, but he was doing a lot of lighting where she was illuminated just here. And so she's a beautiful woman. And, just having this sort of sense of her being lit across the eyes was a particular thing. It was a really great choice.
It was very film noir. Yeah, it felt like it was very that's a shot you see in a lot of old like black and white detective stories, and I thought that was such a cool touch.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because we were just trying to understand whether she's a stranger in a strange land, and that kind of story element is always really fun to deal with because your visual is interpreting what she's feeling, and
as an actor, that's a tough like thread. It's a tough needle to thread because you have to play like a kind of naivete and also a little bit of power too, because you're supposed to be like this kind of babe in the woods. Do you remember any kind of direction you gave to Angela to kind of get her into that headspace, or any inspiration you used for that character?
I don't, but I will say that she was very, what I was hoping from her was that she would be very matter of fact in a way. In other words, she's not a young, giggly 20-something. She's not,
right.
She's not, her language is still from hell.
Yeah.
So even when, for example, she gives her name and it's like 8 names, all those
Good
things
bit.
are baked
That
into
is so funny.
It's
Really
so
good bit.
funny, and all those things are baked into the script, but you can't hit them. You have to just be them, So she stood back from doing anything sort of demonstrative. She was very sort of internal, and that worked very well for her.
I think she's quite good in the movie, and I think that's like Steve's saying. I think it could be kind of a tight. I guess I don't know. I was going to try to think of some like metaphor to say here, but I'm just gonna. I'll probably mix it up. I think she's stilted a bit, but by design, and I think that could be a tough like balancing act of like doing it in a kind of a stilted, unemotive way, but without sounding robotic or without sounding like she can't deliver her lines. Like
Right.
It's all very
Right.
purposeful, and I think it's quite good for that reason. It's kind of like someone who's who's watching the movie and not picking up on, like you said, the acting choices that she's making there to be matter of fact. And be like, oh, like she's not a very emotive, and they might take that as a negative towards the performance. But I think it's by design, and I think she's doing 2 things at once, which are challenging. And I think she's quite good at it in the movie. And she's also like very, like we said before, just like very striking. And so anytime there are those shots of just like her face in the movie, it's very captivating.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I also think in Linda's hands, the nudity was done so brilliantly. And because in a man's hand, I think they would have gone in, I'm assuming, but the way she handled it was just so wonderful. It was just, and I don't know how it was written on the page as opposed to what you did, Linda, but how you did it was so tasteful.
Yeah, I
Thank
agree.
you,
I
Mike.
agree. And it is noticeable. It is always noticeable. And we've seen many other full moon movies that are in the same position and making less tactfully framed choices, with that kind of element of it. So do y'all remember much about like how this movie was received when it came out? I mean, obviously, like a lot of these movies unfortunately were not like picked up by critics. They weren't really given much notice in that way. But do you remember getting any kind of positive feedback at the time, or did this kind of need to grow a little bit?
Well, this was one of the things that was such a pleasure. And Mike was thankfully you were there at the same time at that screening last year at Nighthawk. We had never seen it with an audience. And so it was such a pleasure to be in the room with an audience and see them react to every single thing. I just kept saying to Mike, I can't believe they got every single tiny little visual joke, every single one they laughed at.
It was amazing.
It was
That's
amazing.
gotta feel so good. Yeah.
And I was
and it was like,
that
that was after how many years?
31 years.
Wow.
And we saw it and just the humor, like you knew it was there, but because we never saw it with anybody, you see it by yourself and you find it funny, but when you saw with an audience that really got it, and then we had the Q&A after, and I mean, everybody stayed and talked. We could have talked for hours.
It was such a pleasure. I can't tell you, but to your question, so what happened was it went directly to video. It got fairly decent reviews in that universe, but it never had a theatrical release or anything. So there wasn't a lot of juice around it, right? So I was only seeing what might have come through from the Full Moon folks. There wasn't that much juice. So I think it did okay. I think generally, I don't know how it did on rentals. It would be interesting to know, like how that financially, how it did box office wise.
Yeah, we were kind of curious if that information was shared with y'all, because it's one of those weird little pockets of data that wasn't really like collected or saved. It was like, how are home video sales? How are things like that? A lot of the time, like a movie would like not do very well in theaters, but it would become like a long running VHS rental hit or a DVD market hit, and it would make its money back that way. But they don't release that data really, and so it's kind of hard to calculate. I was just curious if that was ever like conveyed to either of you and how that worked. Yeah.
No, I mean,
definitely not me.
But it was pretty positive. I just remember the reception being pretty positive, and honestly having a lot of free reign. I mean, a lot of the edit was as it was. I don't remember there being a lot of sort of tension around, oh, we need to make it longer or shorter, it needs to be this or that. There was a lot of freedom there. So there was one screening on the Paramount lot, which was cast and crew and friends, and that was it. That's
Linda, would Charlie be the one giving you the notes, or no? Who would give you the notes of trimming it down?
It would have been Charlie.
And he didn't, right?
Well, if he did, he did them wonderfully. Yeah. Because I don't remember having any sort of difficulty or struggle in the editing room. I mean, it was a fairly straightforward thing, and it's not a very straightforward movie. And even in the Full Moon universe, it's an outlier for sure.
It is, yeah. It's kind of got this gothic romance sort of. I guess at the time you could have conflated it with like Anne Rice, which was very popular at the time, and sort of that level of fiction. But I think with time you could see the witty little touches and kind of the twists on the formula. People maybe weren't used enough to the formula yet for it to really kind of click in. But now, like, this dark romantic fantasy subgenre is one of the biggest things on the planet right now in terms of literature, and it's ripping up all the book sales charts and everything like that. Lots of movies being adapted. So this was kind of ahead of its time in terms of that sort of subgenre. And it's fun that it's kind of playing around with some of those tropes before those tropes were even fully like in the canon. That's fun to see, like looking back on it now.
One of my favorite things about looking at these movies that were sort of forgotten and end up reappraised later on is watching people's letterboxd reviews of movies, particularly like this. Because a lot of times with a movie like Dark Angel or other movies that have, aged pretty well and have had either, I don't want to say a reappraisal in the sense that it was negative at first, but just like a discovery of these movies, is that you find a lot of times with the ones that hold up, a really like a letterboxed review by someone who's 25 years old and is watching it and going, holy shit, how did I not know about this movie?
Mhm.
Like, this movie has everything I love. Like, it's got this, and you see that so much. And that's like one of my favorite aspects of Letterboxd, is that people watching in real time, people discover that there's all these movies out there that kind of hit all of the notes of stuff that they're looking for. And I think Dark Angel is one of those where if you scroll through the Letterboxd, there's so many, I think, reviews that are glowingly positive comparatively to a lot of full moon movies. I mean, I think Dark Angel fell at a time where that Paramount deal was pretty good, because a lot of the classic full moon Paramount stuff, I think most of that stuff holds up pretty well. And I think, like, for what you're saying is, I think Charlie was, not super hands-on in terms of a lot. He gave projects, he trusted a lot of the projects and gave them room to breathe. I feel like there might have been more exploitative, low budget studio executives who would have maybe been a little more focused only on the numbers. But I do think there's a real sincerity to the early full moon stuff where Charlie Band's like, I want to find the balance of, like, yes, putting out a lot of this stuff so that people will rent it from the video store, and maybe we're playing with some trends of stuff, and maybe someone will accidentally rent this movie thinking it's Jurassic Park or something along those lines. But also, making a good movie that stands up on its own too. And I think of like Dark Angel, and I think of Dr. Mordred, and I think of like Vampire Journals or Subspecies 2 and 3, which I think Ted Nicolau made 3 really good movies with Vampire Journals is his too. And then the stuff that's just bizarre, like Shrunken Heads, to come back to Matthew Bright again. And I think the way you're describing it and how you had room, in the edit without that pressure, the external pressure, I really think that shows from the Paramount era full moon stuff. It's like they had a nice distribution deal, and Charlie let people kind of, to pull a phrase from Gen Z, he kind of let them cook, and he didn't get too involved in the process.
Yeah.
Was that as cringy as it felt coming out of my mouth, 45-year-old man's mouth?
Bet. Yeah.
I mean, he was very involved, but he wasn't, he absolutely let everybody make their projects in their own way. And I think he also recognized from the outset that Dark Angel was a different script, that it was kind of slightly in a different category. It's certainly not exploitation, because it's not extreme at all. It's not particularly gory. It's not,
Okay, Linda, I'm going to push back a little bit on that, because you can't say that this movie has a Mortal Kombat fatality where someone's spinal cord gets ripped out.
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
Just one.
Look, that's still a PG-13 in some parts of the country. It's fine.
Hey,
All right,
the other thing I was just remembering is that I don't know how this happened, but I remember being invited to Paramount by a gentleman who was terrific and very dedicated to the Laserdisc process.
Oh yeah.
And we color timed the film again, and it was stunning to look at. It was so gorgeous. And so, what you're seeing is something that's been really well color timed. I mean, it was beautifully shot by a very, very competent, film cinematographer. And then it was properly color timed and properly mastered. So I'm not sure what the level of that is now in general, because it's much cheaper to do other things, but that's an unusual combination.
The print.
When did you get it recolor timed or whatever, Linda?
Well, we color timed it because they were going to release it on Laserdisc, because that was the thing. I even have a Laserdisc of the film. But nobody has a laser disc player anymore.
I was gonna say there's a real subset of physical media nerds who still swear by Laserdisc as like the best looking film format, the best looking home video format.
Yeah.
Which I could hear an argument for it. I think they did some really gorgeous stuff on those.
They did some really gorgeous stuff. Yeah. So I think the film really benefited from that little tiny window it flew through technically.
Yeah.
Where everybody was really interested. Paramount was really interested in putting out the highest quality they could. Yeah, we were lucky.
I was very curious about maybe kind of rumor mongering, maybe kind of, figuring out the truth of a situation. But through our research, we found out that around this time, Charlie was trying to put together kind of like a prototype version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where a lot of full moon characters would be crossing over in various movies. And so it was going to be like Mandroid and Invisible and Dollman, and Dark Angel was in that mix on there. Do you remember ever having any conversations about this? Did this only live in Charlie's head? Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it only lived in Charlie's head, but there was sort of a cut down that somebody had contacted me years and years later after the film had come out, that there was some kind of a sequence of Dark Angel that had been used in another full moon film that was kind of a compilation.
Witch
you guys
House.
Probably know more about it.
Yeah. There's a little bit of that hell shot of the shaking heads was cut out and used directly in a movie called Witch House about
and also
5 years after this.
That's one of them, but also it was used in, like you're saying, a compilation. There is another compilation like movie that Charlie Band put out yet, which is one that we haven't covered because I think we, in looking it up and putting the name in the spreadsheet, then realizing, wait, this is just a compilation of 3 films we've already covered. There's no reason for us to do this on the show. But the most egregious use, I think, was in Witch House, where we were watching Witch House for the show. And I'm like, wait a minute, this movie, this cannot just be not 5 minutes. That's probably more than it was, but a minute and a half or something of the hell sequence from Dark Angel. I'm like,
you'd seen the movie, you'd seen Dark Angel at that point, and I had not. So I just remember texting you and being like, man, there's like 5 minutes of this movie that look really good. And they look like they're shot like it from a totally different movie. And then you're like, yep, that's from Dark Angel.
And there's 75 minutes of it that look really not good.
It's just clearly on a different film stock, and it's just entirely lit differently. And we're like, oh, okay. All right.
Well, hey, I would love Detective Greenberg moving over and doing all those different films.
You could be so you'll be like the Clark Gregg character, just connecting all of the universes. You just have to show up at the end credits and tell Dollman he's about a secret initiative.
Exactly. I'm championing the GEU, as we call it, the Greenberg Extended Universe.
Exactly.
Let's get it started.
Exactly.
Oh, I want to see that for sure.
There was something, man, I lost it for a second, and I was just going to ask about it in terms of this. So we covered kind of what the reception was at the time. Oh, and you mentioned the screening, which still one of the more disappointing moments of my recent past was that I had a ticket to that screening. I was super excited for it, and I had the flu. And I missed all of the events. And that was a particularly packed week. I had a trivia night I was going to. There was another movie I was going to see. And I went to 0 of, I think, the 4 events that I had lined up. And I remembered really wondering, because, Full Moon has its bread and butter, and it's made its name as a video store thing. And like to the point where Charles Band has people who come up to him and go, one of my biggest regrets is I didn't get to see Puppet Master when it was in the theater. I only saw it on video, and he doesn't have the heart to tell them it went straight to video. There was so, and when they had the release of Subspecies 5 about 3 years ago, that played an Alamo Drafthouse kind of limited run across the country. And I went to that, and that was super fun because people who are fans were amped up to see a Full Moon movie on the big screen. There was kind of a Video Zone style behind the scenes thing that played afterward. And it's a newer, slicker one, and it looked really good on the big screen. And so for Dark Angel, I remember being like, I love that they're doing this. And I can't wait to go. I unfortunately ended up not being able to go, but I remember being really curious, like, are the people going to come out? are the Full Moon fans going to come out for it and support it? And so to hear you say it in retrospect, you know, what a exuberant crowd it was and how it turned into this Q&A where everyone stayed makes me really happy to hear that. And I can only imagine, because you're talking 31 years, I can't imagine anything I was involved with at age 14. If someone came to me tomorrow and said, hey, remember that thing you did when you were in 8th grade? I would be like, first of all, I'd be like, no. But second of all, like, oh, wow, that impacted you. Like, and I would be so interested to hear people's personal connections to the movie too. Do you remember any specific like questions or comments about the film that people brought up to you in this screening? I guess I'll throw it first to Michael and then to Linda.
Well, I'm trying to, well, I mean, well, first off, Nighthawk is an amazing theater complex. I mean,
yeah, John Woods is a good friend, and I've done a couple screenings there. They're amazing.
It's really wonderful. I mean, it's just such a vibrant place. But no, I mean, I know, I think I remember them really liking, you know, obviously saying they liked that scene when I fall in the pothole. And I remember that being something that they really took. But no, I can't remember specific things, just the energy in the room that, like, you know, I don't know how many people were there. It was packed. So there was
sold out.
Yeah, it was sold out, and they all stayed, you know, and that right there, like, they, you know, they would have kept peppering us with questions and asking us stories. And I do believe, didn't they do a documentary of us shooting there, Linda, on the side? Was that ever shown anywhere?
Yeah. So that's the video zone.
Do you mean the video
zone? It is,
zone?
right? Okay, they did the video zone.
Is that attached to the video? Is that attached? Is that part of the...
It's usually, I think they would attach them to earlier Full Moon movies as like a preview. Like, so instead of like the features like you would have it on DVD, this one was meant to like hype you up for the next one coming. So the Dark Angel one probably would have run in the one before that. Like maybe that's an Android. I don't remember the exact chronology, but yeah.
It was a mixture of some behind the scenes stuff from one of the movies, and then it would have trailers for other things, and Charlie Band, you know, having a Charlie Spradling sell some of his Full Moon merchandise in parts too. And those would be on the VHS tapes, but they're primarily now mostly available on the Full Moon app, on the streaming app. So it's like, and on
YouTube, we found a lot of these on YouTube.
And so if you search Dark Angel on the Full Moon streaming app, like the movie comes up, but then right next to it is like the, you know, 17 minutes or however long it is video zone with the behind the scenes interviews and stuff like that on there as well.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't remember at the theater. I can't be that specific. Maybe you might remember, Linda, some of the comments.
I was just floored, I have to say. I was just thrilled. It was thrilling to see people who appreciated the film. It was thrilling to be in the room and hear the jokes land. Wow. I mean, it was so thrilling because they weren't obvious. They weren't. People were just sort of, they were in the zone of the film, and it was really, it was just a tremendous pleasure. I was surprised at how young the audience was. It was a really young audience. I mean, there were a lot of people there, you know, under 30 who had just discovered it, as you had mentioned. You know, they had found it, and that, you know.
Well, I think there's the curation for Nighthawk too. I think they've established kind of some credentials in terms of their programming. So like, if I'm not mistaken, it was part of the Ridiculous Sublime.
Yes.
So the Ridiculous Sublime programming, that's also, Steve, where I saw Prison.
Oh, amazing.
So when Prison is a movie, an early, an Empire movie by Charlie Band that they did a screening of, which was incredible also. But the people who curate that program, they pick really interesting stuff. And I think they've kind of gotten the credibility where when they pick it and they promote it, and then when there's the ticket release, they have the blurb about it on the website. I think this was one that was probably a blind watch also for a good number of the audience.
I'm not sure, because there were a number of people who came up to me and said this was like the 3rd time they'd seen it or the 5th time.
Oh, I like that
and
more.
I was sort of shocked.
I like that scenario more than mine. So let's go with that.
And I love that, like a lot of people, like in recent years, have been discovering these movies on Tubi, which has like become a really amazing resource for a lot of these movies that were like released during the VHS era, you know, and maybe not shepherded or marketed as well as they could have been. So that's been a really great resource for us on this show. And Tubi's just kind of been growing in people's estimation over the years. There's just so many. Like I know some people who only use Tubi at this point. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And there's just always something interesting and fascinating to find on there, and it's cool to see this movie finally get some well-deserved love over time, and kind of starting to get rediscovered. I hope we can continue to bang the drum for it a little bit because I think it's super cool.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Well, y'all have been so generous with your time, and thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of these amazing stories. We thrive off of this stuff, and it's so cool to hear the behind the scenes making ofs. Do either of you have any upcoming projects or anything you'd like to share or anything you'd like to plug that's out at the moment?
Linda?
I don't have anything. I'm in the writing phase right now, so I'm mostly writing the next thing. And because the world is moving very fast right now, some of the things that I'm writing are becoming obsolete as we speak.
Yeah, it's very true.
Yeah.
The only thing I'd plug is, I've got a small part in Mercy with that Chris Pratt and Rebecca Ferguson, and
I saw number 3 on Amazon as of this recording. A big big movie right now. Yeah, it sure is.
Awesome.
Yeah,
cool.
It's doing great. Yeah, that's amazing.
And everything else out here, I'm doing for free. I'm directing Romeo and Juliet. I just got cast in a Time for Killing, right? A Time for Killing. Yeah, Time for Killing. And what else? I'm trying to write a screenplay as well.
You've got a really incredible IMDb if people want to check it out. I mean, you've just got amazing. You've got one of those kind of character actor careers that I dream of. Like I'm an aspiring actor myself, and I'm kind of working towards that. And that's like, I just love guys who get to like just touch a little bit of all of these different worlds, and you kind of just get to be his journeyman. And it's super cool. Yeah, it's really cool.
I keep trying to touch on the, I did Sleepaway Camp, my very first film.
Yes. Oh, I could take another several hours on this.
I know.
One.
I thought about bringing it up or not, and I was like, because that will set me off on another hour tangent of how impactful that movie was for me.
I keep wanting to go to those autograph signings, but then someone invited me right around the pandemic, and then he never got back to me. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I mean, I'll go. And because they said, yeah, no, everybody's been there, but you, Hal, the lifeguard.
Oh, amazing.
Listen, so cool. you will forever have a way into the convention circuit if you're tied in any way to Sleepaway Camp.
Wow.
Because
it's a real cult favorite. Yeah, it's really become amazing.
I mean, like Felissa Rose will do this until the end of time, and you want to talk about a movie like that's fun to watch people discover for the first time. Like
me and my friends would have annual parties. We'd have annual Sleepaway Camp parties where we need to bring at least one new person, and they have to go in as cold as humanly possible, and they come away fans every time. So that's a rare kind of communal movie. So I'll stop going on about it, because I will. You put a quarter in me, and I'll just keep going.
It's up there with It's a Wonderful Life.
That's the two.
I'll tell you, one of them I watch every Christmas, and the other one is It's a Wonderful Life.
Nighthawk programmers, if you're listening, this is a double header that I've seen
Sleepaway Camp at these like ridiculous sublime type things a lot, and it always gets a huge crowd, there's always like 3 to 1 in terms of like people who are there specifically to expose someone, pun intended, to that movie. And then it's a one unsuspecting person in the crowd for it. And Steve's talking about Michael's IMDb as something he strives for. I would have been the one who wanted to be kind of the effects artist, and I would have wanted to be the person who created those prosthetic feet that she has on in the hospital bed.
Those are amazing.
That was awesome.
Those are so good. Oh my God.
That was a running gag that kept on giving. That was just
yes. They're just staring at her Doc Martens.
Yeah.
No, those jokes they land, and I guess like just to kind of like we've done a little bit of plugging. I feel like we've had a really insightful conversation. Are there any kind of like just last final thoughts that you two have, and now that you have the kind of spotlight to talk about this movie, is there one aspect of it that went untouched in this conversation, just kind of something that pops into your brain as maybe one of the first things you think of when you think of Dark Angel?
Oh my. I don't know. It would be great to go back there and shoot again. I can tell you that. It's just, I would love to see what's happened in all these 30 years. It's been a very long time, and that part of the world has changed radically.
Sure.
We were there 4 years after Ceausescu was assassinated. So, I mean, or executed, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a different world, and it would be interesting to go back now, particularly because the studios that we were shooting in are now vast.
Yeah. I would love to shoot in Romania again.
Yeah.
And also, one of the things that we never brought up was being able to work with Mike Genovese.
Yeah.
My partner. I mean, he's a gift that keeps on giving as well. I mean, he's just, so it'd be a mistake not to mention working with Mike Genovese.
I think there should be a whole series that's just the two detectives.
Oh,
and they're investigating paranormal.
Yes.
See, that's my favorite
That's
one. They're the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of the Dark Angel universe, and they have their own adventures. I would love that.
No,
That would be
the
awesome.
chemistry is excellent, and Mike, you have so many good one-liners between the two of you.
Thanks.
It's super fun, and this has been a great chat. And I'm sure if you're listening to this, if you're a fan of the show and you listen every week, well, first of all, thank you for tuning in every week. But also, if for some reason you discovered this show and you're a Full Moon fan, but you haven't you listened to this without having watched Dark Angel, well, that was your mistake. But I would say, definitely go and watch Dark Angel. If it's been a while and this is kind of piquing your interest again, go back, rewatch it. The print that's on the Full Moon app looks really nice.
It does.
And you're definitely going to find something in the movie to love. If you do love the show that we bring to you every week, one way you can show us is by going on to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leaving us a 5-star rating, maybe a little review too. Always nice for us to reach a wider audience there. So say some kind words in a Spotify or Apple Music or iTunes review for this podcast. If you want to keep up with what we're doing kind of week to week, the best way to do that is on Instagram. You can find us at puppetmasters_castle freaks, or you can follow me at _Giallo_Jared. Also, we put out promotional posts on Blue Sky. We have in our Facebook group when we tell you the new episodes that are coming out. You can listen to audio versions of the show on YouTube. And maybe at some point, Steve and I will have more content on YouTube. Who knows? Because you know what? It's a lot. And Steve has so many other things going on right now that it makes it difficult. But all of that stuff is very cool. So Steve, where else can people find your work if they want to?
Oh, well, they can find me on my other podcast, Cinema Arcade. That's cinema and arcade mashed together. We are watching movies and playing the video games based on those movies. As you listen to this, we are about to launch into a 5-week bender on Shrek movies, which so pray for your boy here, because not a fan of the Shrek movies myself, but maybe I'll be convinced by the time I get to the end of this. You could also find my writing over at Macabre Daily. I'm writing movie reviews over there, as well as on CBR and a couple other places. So you can find my stuff out there, and be sure to tune into us this coming Friday. We're going to be talking about the most recent Full Moon movie, one that came out just back in December, a film called Prompt, a movie that surprised us in a lot of ways. So definitely tune back in to hear us talking about that. And thank you once again to our amazing guests. This has been nothing but a delight for us. And thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody who's watched the film and enjoyed it. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Thank you very much.